Hi everyone, it's Helen here again from Bodywork-Pilates, and we are on day 11 of 12 days of Pilates. I hope you've been enjoying it. I hope you've got something from it, and I hope if you've been doing it every day that you're feeling some benefits from it. Let me know, I'd love to know. All right, let's get started. We start with our sways. Find the position that you feel that you're strong and stable and lifted in. All of those things we've spoken of. Hands just rest, chin slightly drawn in, open up at the front of the hips. Let's just sway forward and back. It's our switch on exercise. It is that exercise where we are looking to see whether we recognize that feeling of the abdominals engaging as we come off balance, releasing as we come back to balance, or at least releasing a little, and then engaging strongly again as we come off balance again. Slightly forward and back. Spread out those toes. Give yourself a little bit of something to move in and out of. And even as you do this, start to think of the breathing. Breathing in through the nose, out through the nose of the mouth. Take the breath to the fullness of the ribs and the upper back. So we don't want to press that breath right down into the belly. We want to feel that accordion-esque style of movement in those ribs. Going to bring it back to center this time and go straight into your side bends. Now we've given you plenty of alternatives of side bends. Now turning the head, hand behind the head, alternating from side to side, doing a few on one side and then a few on the other. But the rules of the balance are the same. So we're looking for a sense of lifting up as we come over, and we're looking to keep the weight evenly placed into the feet. So we don't want to feel like we're shifting more weight into one foot than the other, all right? And we don't want to get too big with the hips either. We're going to keep it pretty stable here. Notice the activity in the muscles on this long side as you come back to center. Remember, muscles pull, they don't push. So there's nothing here pushing me back up. It's all here pulling me. It's like somebody's got hold of my t-shirt and it's pulling me back to center as those long muscles contract to bring us back up. And bringing it back to center this time as we move into our foot pedals. So we take this really from the reformer. Some of the footwork that we do on the reformer, not so much with the arms, but definitely with the feet. Knees track toes, adds a little balance, exercises those feet, just gently starts to pump some blood around the body, certainly through those calves. Important that we exercise those feet, particularly now in winter, as we've probably got a few weeks, maybe even months of still cramming our feet into socks and boots and, you know, perhaps not seeing the light of day that they would in the summer. Okay, and bring it all the way back down and moving into our full balance. So we move the weight forward, those abdominals still lightly engage. We let the arms float up, the heels lift, and without splaying onto the little toes, we bring it back down, weight above the instep, we turn the palms back, we turn the head, we really press those arms down, retract the shoulders, expand the chest. And lift. And down. So don't be tempted to press too heavily back as we did in the sways. Okay, we're rising to the ball of the feet and then we're coming back to center. We want to keep a little weight down underneath the ball of the big toe, little weight into the big toe itself. So again, if you feel yourself splaying off onto your little toes, you might be coming a little bit too high. So just modify that until you're a bit stronger. Keeping the same length through the inside and the outside edges of the ankles. Let's do this one more time. And then we move straight into that hip hinge, okay? Turning side on, so we again are aware of the length in the front and the back edge of the body. Crossing arms if you want to, you can even put the hands onto the low back if you want to. It really looks like a waiter's bow then. So we want to keep those distances, those bony landmarks at the front edge of the body constant. If I was just to round forward, I would be pulling the upper edge of my body downwards and losing those distances. Little softness in the knees, and again, remember, muscles pull, they don't push. So as we come through, we get a little lengthening across the glutes, a little bit into the top reach of the hamstring, and it's the shortening, the contraction of those. So if you want to, you can put your hands on your bottom and feel how active your bottom is as you come back up again. In these current times though, just your own bottom, you're not allowed to touch anybody else's anymore, okay? So just getting that feeling of being able to squeeze and contract those muscles in order to pull back up again. And this, like our squat that we're going to be moving on to in a moment, a really functional activity. It's great for strength and it will stand you in really good stead as you age. That and balance, really important. And then bring it all the way back up. Give the shoulders a little bit of a roll around, shake off those feet, and let's go straight into those squats that we've just spoken of. So the same rules apply in the length of the body. We slightly hitch and then we squat, knees tracking toes. And I did it again. I said hitch instead of hinge. I've got a mental block with this now. So knees track second and third toes. Take those hips as low as you can, even if that means you go lower than me, because my knees don't really allow me to go much deeper. But you might have great knees and ankles and be able to do this. You might one day want to experiment with having it much wider, so perhaps as a variation you would take your feet much wider, knees still track toes, and then coming down and back up again. So you can play around with that as long as your form is good. But this is a great activity for picking those things up from low places and being able to rise again under steam and control. Okay, bring it all the way back up and let's go into our tandem stance. So one foot forward of the other. I think we know by now that we're on a tightrope. Okay, I wasn't too wobbly yesterday, but doesn't look good for today, does it? So we've got those inner thighs drawing together. We've got that lift of the pelvic floor. We're opening up the hips, dropping that sacrum down a little. We don't want to put all our weight into the back foot. So let's find that feeling of trying to establish balance. And it's not about being perfectly still. There's no challenge in being perfectly still. The challenge is in recovering from wobbling. So maybe this is it. And again, maybe your next stage would just be to move the eyes. Our eyes are so important in our balance. So moving our gaze is challenging. Maybe, these are all little alternatives we've done in previous days. We keep those hips forward, we move those ribs and sweep that forward arm, forward leg, forward arm back. Maybe you want to go into that slightly more fluid movement. Oh, I might have, ooh, there you go. Oh gosh, this one is definitely not for me at the moment. Okay, but again, you've got a few alternatives there you can play around with just to find that balance. Shake that out. Might have felt that in that back calf, maybe around that glute of the back leg, and change sides. All right, don't have to have the feet touching. There can be a little gap. You'll find the position that works best for you, I'm sure. Hips are open, sacrum drops down, chest is open, and initially we establish balance and positioning. So don't rush anything. It doesn't matter if you spend a little bit longer and if you find that you really want to work on something, or it's going really well and you want to do a few more. Just pause the video for a moment or two, do a few more, and then invite me back into your workout. Okay, so remember, you could just turn the head. I think that might be my challenge for today. Ooh. Okay, or you might want to take forward leg, same arm, into that rotation of the ribs. Just a soft rotation of the ribs. Remember, we're going to be doing more rotation on those ribs a little bit later. So this is, again, just prepping that area. Or you might want to be a little bit more dynamic, nice, smooth, fluid little rotation. The head still turns. Don't just do the arms and leave the head still. Okay, remember, it is the movement of the head that's really challenging. And then bring it all the way back to center, shake that out. Oh, I really feel that in my right calf. And bring yourself down onto the floor, and we're going to do our backstroke. So take the time that you need, widen those shoulders, set yourself up into position. I'm never going to rush. If you're there before me, then feel free to carry on. But I'm just going to make sure that we've got plenty of time to really set ourselves into position. Pubic bone is forward, natural curve to the low back, lightly engaging those abdominals. Feet and knees are hip distance, back of the neck is long, our gaze is up and slightly forward. And from here, arm and opposite leg. Thinking about those distances of those bony landmarks, that rib to hip connection. Keeping the arm long, try not to let the arm bend. If you can avoid bending the arm, that would be great. We're really trying to open up some distance from fingers through to feet. Maybe you want to add a flex through the foot, so really pushing out through the ankle, coming back with a soft point. Maybe you want to add both arms into this. So a little bit more weight into the movement as we take both arms back, but again, all the underpinning rules are the same. Keeping that breath fluid, allowing the movement to flow with the breath. So once you've established the natural pattern of your breath, the length and the flow of the breath, then your movements are guided by the breath. We don't hold our breath in Pilates. No retentions. And make this the last one. Bringing it back to center. We shouldn't have changed our starting position. We should be in exactly the same position, same little curvature of the back of the body, same length at the front edge of the body, but adjust if you need to. And from here, smoothly, slowly, really carefully, you're going to float a knee up and down, a single knee up and down. I'm going to give you another alternative today, but it is a hefty alternative, so I would urge you, if this works for you, then don't skip through to the heavy stuff just because it looks like it's more fun. Okay, it's really important that you build up, build up, build up. Okay, so the second level, if you're beyond this and you're comfortable to move on, is to bring that second leg up as well. So we float that knee above the hip. We make sure we're prepared. There's no prizes for number of repetitions. Okay, and quality trumps quantity every single time. So take your time to ensure that you are ready for any other activity. In this case, an extra lift of another leg. Make that sound like you've got loads, don't I? Another leg, choose another leg. Okay, and then making sure those hips stay stable. We're still pressing forward through that pubic bone. We haven't changed the distances in the front edge of the body. And as you bring that second leg up particularly, notice that those abdominals continue to wrap around and your belly doesn't try and make a bid for freedom. So it is that feeling of slightly tightening that corset, really holding our ground. Okay, so you've got two alternatives there. I'm going to add on a third. This is a little heavier, so please be wise with your movements. Okay, so we've got both feet, okay? We're going to flex the feet. We're going to maintain the 90-degree angle, thigh to torso on the left leg as we take the right heel down, touch the floor, bring it back up again. Okay, and once it's there, we take the left heel down and then bring it back up again. Okay, so all I'm doing is not dropping my heel to my bottom to bring my foot down. I'm keeping the same angle behind my knee as I bring my heel down to the floor. Okay, so I'm not extending the leg, I'm not bending the leg, I'm just keeping what I've already got. And just notice how that works up into the thighs. You may feel it coming into the hips. It is heavier, so notice what happens in your back. If you start to feel your tummy beginning to press out, then stop what you're doing. The other thing you want to be aware of is as you take one leg down, don't let the other leg come in towards you. Okay, it is only about moving one leg. So another alternative is to put the hands on the front of the thighs and to keep the contact with the hand as you just take one leg down, so you don't feel the other leg pushing into you. So it's a couple little trips you can do. And take a moment, bring those knees in, have a little hug, maybe massage that back before placing the feet one and then the other back down to the floor. So that's a third option for those of you that have been doing it a little bit longer. Okay, let's have both feet in one shoe, both legs in one trouser leg, arms wide or across the chest as you prefer. And from here, rolling over onto the one side of the pelvis so that the upper side of the body, the leg, and that hip is completely supported, and then back to center. So it's really, really key that you keep your bunions glued together, your ankle bones glued together, your inner thighs, knees, and shins glued together. And remember again, it's the pulling back to center. Nothing's pushing you back to center, but those contracting muscles are pulling you back to center. This is just a little rotation that comes from the lower ribs down towards the lumbar spine. Not a lot of movement in the lumbar spine in rotation, but little bit, there's a little bit. But we are completely stabilizing our upper body, completely stabilizing. And again, just work in time with the breath, the inhale, the exhale. I like to inhale as I take my knees to the side because it allows me to expand my rib cage and gives me just a little bit more purchase to the mat to hold myself in place. And then of course, as I exhale, it really matches in with that contraction to bring me back to center. So the effort of the movement really is on the return for me. And bring it back to center this time. Release the arms if they're across the body, give the legs a little bit of a shake out, and roll yourself over onto your side and come to seated. Okay, so again, as always, you can choose how you sit. I'm sitting on my bench because that's where I am. You can sit on the floor. If you're sitting on a chair, just make sure your feet are flat, and however you're sitting, whether you're sitting on the floor or whether you've chosen to sit on a block or something, you really want to lift up out of the spine. Get that same sense of lift and length as you had when you were standing. Okay, into our archer. So it's the complete opposite of what we've just done in our double hip roll. Take the arms forward, drop the shoulders down, the chin is slightly drawn in. Stabilize the pelvis this time. We didn't stabilize the pelvis before, but stabilizing the pelvis now. And then just draw the elbow back, opposite arm pulling forward, and then back to center. So it is still that rotation. It's an expansion of the rotation that you might have experienced on tandem stance. But we are stabilizing now the lower body, rotating the upper body, as opposed to double hip roll where we stabilize the upper body and rotate from the lower. Pelvis really still. So keep those hip points facing forward. Otherwise you just end up slightly bum walking down your mat. Let's do a couple more of these. Let the head turn as well. And then release. Take the arms down, give the shoulders a little shrug, release the neck, and let's prep for our roll down or variation thereof. Okay, so legs straight or bent, but get that lift up out of the spine, so we don't want to be here because that just looks unpleasant. Okay, and remember, everything we do in Pilates should be effortless and elegant and should always carry a Pilates face. So a Pilates face is never like that, okay? Pilates face is serene and it's beatific, really. It's what you're looking for. Nice Pilates face. All right, so up nice and tall. Remember, we'll start small, we'll build up if it's for you. So we're going to draw away into that low back. We're lifting that pelvic floor. We're engaging those abdominals, shoulders down and lifting. It's the feeling that you're lifting the pubic bone up towards you. And again, not a particularly nice visualization I should say, but it is almost as if you're pulling away from a punch in the belly, above the pubic bone and below the navel. So it's that soft lower belly portion where you feel like you're pulling back, pulling away from a punch. Not a nice visualization, but I think you get the picture. If it works for you to go a little bit further, then do so. Just watch that neck, that we're not pushing any tension into the neck. And of course, you want to be able to return from wherever you get to, restacking the spine at the end of the movement. Crown of the head last, and again. Now, for some of you, it's going to be possible that you go bone by bone, vertebra by vertebra, all the way down into your mat without skipping any portion. Let the shoulders widen, let the head rest. Press the pubic bone forward, return the spine to neutral, let the arms come up. Soften those ribs as you breathe out, let the arms reach back. If you feel you can roll all the way up, then great. If you can't, roll over onto your side, press through the hands and come up carefully. Good. And again. So just keep that going in whatever measure you're working with. And let me just say at this point, I've already said previously that we don't anchor our feet, okay? Never anchor the feet. However, if you are seemingly rolling down reasonably well, but are still struggling with the roll up, then assuming that you don't fling yourself into it, some hand weights can really help. Okay, so you can roll down, find that neutral, take the arms up. I would be careful about taking the arms back, to be honest. I wouldn't take them too far back if you're carrying weights. And then bring the arms through, let the weights carry you forward. So again, roll across the shoulders, slide down through the breastbone, press the arms forward, pull pubic bone slightly towards you. And just see, assuming you can roll down smoothly, whether some hand weights might assist you to come back up again. Because let's be honest, familiarity is a big portion of Pilates. Muscle memory is a big portion. If your body doesn't experience a movement, how does it then go, oh, you want me to do that? Oh, why didn't you say? Because it has never experienced it. So if it can experience it, then there is this muscle memory where it goes, oh yeah, I get that. I know what I need to do. Okay, let's take ourselves all the way down. Use the hands if you need to, all the way down. Oh no, don't do that. Come back up again if you did that. I've gone into automatic mode where I forgot the double hip roll yesterday. Actually, from here, all you need to do is bring yourself around onto your hands and knees as we move into table. Hands below the shoulders, knees below the hips, fingers, wrist creases facing forward, shoulders widened, lengthening through the front edge of the body, exactly as we did if we were standing or sitting. Okay, imaginary line, center of the mat. And without shifting our weight and without overreaching, we extend arm and opposite leg, bring it back to center. If you think about it, this is almost the opposite action, flipped over, of what we did in backstroke, arm with opposite leg. So when we did our backstroke, we wanted to keep the pelvis level and still. We wanted to keep the shoulder girdle drawn down away from the ears, and we wanted to keep the ribs soft. The rules are exactly the same here. It's just that we've turned ourselves over, we've added a couple of other bits in, not least the pressure into those wrists that gives us a little bit of much needed strength work around a potentially quite troublesome joint. Notice that we're not lifting out of thumb and first finger, so that little instep of thumb and first finger connect into the mat. Let's do that a couple more times on each side. It's not about height. Arm up in line with the ear, only parallel to the floor, leg parallel to the floor. Use those glutes to raise that leg. Should be a little squeeze into the glute at the end of the movement. And bring it back to center this time. Take a moment just to take the pressure off the wrists, before coming down onto your tummy. Glasses off again. So we spoke about this at some length yesterday. We want to feel that our legs are really long, like somebody's trying to pull our legs out of the bottom of our trousers. A little cushion underneath the forehead or hands underneath the forehead, but you want to have your face slightly elevated so the back of the neck remains in its natural curve. Press into those hip creases either side of the pubic bone and onto the pubic bone, opening up compression in the low back. Engage those abdominals as a corset. All right, so from here, without pressing into the arms, remember muscles pull, just slide the breastbone forward, reach the crown of the head forward, maintain the length in the back of the neck, press onto the front edge of the pelvis, keep those lower ribs down, lift and then lower. So breathing in as you lengthen away and float up, and breathing out as you lower back down. Again, if you just can't help yourself from pressing into the hands, hands could come to the low back, just get a feeling of how open that low back is, and perhaps do it again. Maybe putting a little cushion underneath the forehead instead of the hands, because we don't want to push our head down onto the floor. You'll probably find that your glutes will stay relatively inactive here. Because we're not moving down into lumbar spine, the glutes don't necessarily need to get too heavily involved. If we were to lift much higher, your glutes would definitely want to get involved. So again, tops of the feet down, tops of the thighs down, open into those hip creases, press down to the pubic bone, engage those abdominals, lower ribs down, lengthen the back of the neck, shoulders away from the ears. It's that area from just behind the breastbone. And those of you that have ever worked with one of the squashy Pilates balls behind the breastbone, it's that area that you're working, right behind the breastbone, that just opens you up and gives you that sense of lift from the breastbone. It's all you're looking for. Not a big movement. Just one more. If you feel compression in your lower back as you do this, stop, rethink your position and restart. Bring the hands underneath the forehead if they're not already there. Maybe just give the hips a little bit of a rock. Okay, you're going to stay exactly where you are. I'm going to turn around because actually it's more important that you see my pelvis and my feet than it is my upper body now. So just to ensure that you get the important bits in the video, I'm going to just go this way round. Okay. So again, I've got my hands underneath my forehead, okay? Or again, a cushion, if that works better for you. We open out through the front edge of the pelvis again. So the setup is pretty much the same as we've just done for our extension. We're going into swimming legs. I'm saying swimming legs because we're only doing the legs. Bit of a giveaway, really. All right, now, what's really important is that we don't push into this. So again, the tummy doesn't push out. And we don't push into the left side in order to lift the right. So from here, we stay long and open through the back edge of the body, through the front edge of the body, and we float the right thigh off the floor. We're not bending the knee, we're extending away and floating and then lowering back down again. And then left. Okay, so we're looking to keep that pelvis absolutely still. No rocking from side to side. So that pelvis stays still, that low back stays open, and all we're trying to do is open up the front of the hip a little bit more and really engage the glutes. So perhaps again, just have a little squeeze and just notice how active your bottom is as you do this. Your bottom only, nobody else's. So, breathing out as you float, breathing in as you lower. Now, some of you will find that that's absolutely fine, there's no issue at all. Think of length more than height. So again, don't be tempted to push down in order to lift, because all you'll do is twist. Everything must stay down and stay facing forward. But if it works for you to do that, and again, this may impact your lumbar spine, so be careful, you could switch and switch. So in other words, one leg comes up, the other leg comes down. There's a moment when both feet are from the floor, both thighs are lifting, and you're just working a little bit harder. Okay? Then you could play around with the rhythm of it. So you would start off breathing out and in, breathing out and in, and then maybe go to out, in, okay? The breath hasn't changed. So we're not changing the speed of the breath, but we could, if we wanted to, change the speed of the legs. So now perhaps you would do 4 on the in breath and 4 on the out breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. So it doesn't really matter as long as you keep all the underpinning principles the same. So the length of the low back, the press down into the front of the pelvis, so the hip creases, the hip bones, the pubic bone, the lower ribs, okay, the length without bending, okay, those kind of things. So all of these things, the relaxation of the shoulders, but how many beats per breath you do in and out is entirely up to you. The other thing you need to remember about that is the more dynamic you make the movement, the more difficult it is to stabilize at the hips. So if you find that you start to add a little bit of pace into it, but it's ricocheting out the crown of your head, then you might want to just slow it down a touch. So that's your swimming legs. Various alternatives there for you, depending on how you want to work and how it works for you again day to day. Bring those legs down, let those legs just roll in and out. We've done a couple of prone exercises face down, so take a moment, come onto the hands and the knees. And I don't want you to cat stretch. But I do want you to just tuck your tail like a little whipped puppy. Not a great visualization again, but you know what I mean. So again, without moving that upper back at all, I want you to focus your attention entirely on just curling your tail under. If you were doing the time warp, this would be the pelvic thrust of the time warp. Just until you feel a little elongation and release in that lumbar spine. And then relax, because that is it. That is day 11. So tomorrow we put it all together with one more exercise to do. Christmas Eve, feel free to dress up for the, well, just for the sheer hell of it. All right, I'll speak to you soon. Take care.